and welcome back to Madonna's Lounge, Everything Union and the Grievance Process series. So today we're going to talk about grievance handling and how do we go about preparing for the grievance that now we're about to present at a labor management meeting. So we know that preparation is the key to success in most of life's activities, right? That's a granted. And if many times we're trying to do something serious or important, if we're not prepared, then we could be losing out on a lot of things that we could have gained if we had only taken the time to prepare for what it is we're about to do. So grievance handling is no exception in this rule, where the outcome of the grievance often depends on how well the store prepares or person prepares for the grievance. So we want to look at some steps in terms of how it is we're going to prepare for this grievance, what it is we need to look at, things that we need to extract from it, things that we need to definitely put a pin on to say, hey, this is really, really important for me to focus on that. I may need some more documents. I may need to talk to one or two more people before I get this grievance in order. Particularly if you're talking about grievances where people may be working out of title and they're entitled to compensation, or people are not being paid properly, you want to make sure you get all those relevant documents. You may want to look at, first of all, asking your member, your client, to provide their pay stubs, their timesheets, their work schedule, and their job description, and anything else that they think is relevant to the case. Once you're reviewing that, then in that process, then you can certainly extract what you believe that has no relevance and keep those solid things that can make sure that you are presenting to management to substantiate your case. Because there's nothing worse than a store or an individual going to a meeting where they are not prepared, and they're going to a meeting based off of emotions, based off of hearsay, based off of them feeling that someone is targeting them. You can forget about all of that. When you go to these meetings, you must have documentation to prove what it is you're saying. If you're talking about a harassment case, right? Male, female, anything that's happening on the job that you feel as though you're being harassed, whether it's sexual harassment, you want to put down and make notation how long this has been going on. Are there witnesses? Who is the supervisor's name or the person's name? It could be a coworker. Okay, you want to put those things down. What environment did all of this happen in? Texts that you may have received. You want to do screenshots and that and keep it as part of your file. It can be anything that you feel is relevant to your case. But again, we're going to review that before we even go to a meeting to see what is relevant, what is hearsay, and what is not. In cases where you feel as though you will not feel, certainly you have evidence that you have been short paid, you would need to have your pay stub, right? You would need to have dates that you were not working, your timesheet, right? So those two would be relevant information. If you're talking about an EEO complaint that you may have made and you have not gotten any results, but the behavior continues, you want to have documentation, emails that you may have sent to the EEO officer as part of the file. You may want to have emails that you would have sent to the supervisor or the HR person as evidence that you have made complaints before and did not get a response. Okay, these things are solid, concrete things that you must have. So let's move forward and talk about how do we prepare for these types of meetings. Labor management meetings are typically one-on-one. However, there are other cases where management will have several other titles in there with them. They can have the immediate supervisor that is the head of the store, the head of the shop. They can have a lawyer in there. They can have another assistant, their assistant director, all of those people. So if you go into a meeting and you feel as though you're overwhelmed by all of these other people there, not to worry. You focus on what it is you are there for, have your case together, and begin to make your presentation. You can certainly ask why are all these individuals there. Certainly with the exception of the supervisor would be entitled to be there if in fact you are speaking about the supervisor or something that happens in the shop or in a department or division or unit that that supervisor is in charge of. And you may also request that the supervisor be there if he or she is not there. There needs to be an explanation. Okay, so let's look at all the evidence, right? Because we want to fill in the gaps that we may discover, things that are missing. You also want to determine the importance and relevance of each fact and piece of information that you get, right? So we talked about that before. Make sure you put things out, lay things out on a table, or or on your laptop, your screen, to see which is relevant, which is hearsay, and which is actual facts. And we always want to deal with facts when we're going to hearings, not he say, she say. That's not going to cut it. Then we want to distinguish between allegations and opinions, right? On one hand, and facts and other things on the other hand. So here's an example of an allegation, right? John gets most of the overtime. That's an opinion, right? It's not a fact. Here is a fact. John got overtime on the 14th, the 18th, the 30th, and the 31st. It means you have documentation that John worked with someone else who you have proof that John actually worked on those days. And to get even more proof, solid proof, you also want to make sure that you make a request from management on those dates that you're being told that John worked on, so that you can have proof that John did do overtime on those dates. You can get it from management. You don't necessarily need to talk to the member, to ask the member to provide this documentation, because if John is not the grievant, then really you don't need to be talking to John. Now, if John doesn't have a problem with you talking to him, and John is fair, and John wants to help out, John may well say, yeah, I did work on those dates. And that would not implicate him at all. So again, you want to make this request from management in writing, okay, not just a phone call. If you call, then you need to follow up with an email that says that, hey, we had a conversation at X, Y, and Z date. I'm requesting X, Y, and Z, and you need to state in there by the close of business. You never want to leave that type of request open-ended, because people can always excuse that away. They can say, hey, you never gave me a date that you wanted it back, the information, therefore I'm busy, I have other things to do, and it was an oversight. Once you put that urgency and importance to it, people know that you are serious. You need this document, obviously, for some particular reason. You don't have to disclose what the reason is. You can simply request it as the start that you're asking for this because you're going to have a meeting with management. You don't need to say who is making a complaint. That is confidential and should be confidential until you get to the meeting with management that this is to be disclosed. You also want to research a local grievance file for any past grievance or similar situations. So you may want to talk to another store, right? So if there are different using shops, you may want to talk to other stores to see if in fact they may have had a similar experience, and they can share that experience with you to make sure that you, at least it gives you some background information as to what's going on. You may also want to discuss the grievance with other stores or officers to gain insight on the case. Again, this is certainly important. You want to write a grievance, okay? There are grievance forms that are really self-explanatory. Again, you want to add in all the information that is relevant to make sure that it's the right person, the right place, the right agency, the right unit, and you want to review this with the member so that the member can make any corrections if necessary. In terms of articles and agreements, again, it's self-explanatory. You look at your union contract and you cite the article, the section, and what the violation is. So you don't have to make up anything. The articles are there. It's important to put the articles so the management knows right away what it is you're talking about. Right? In the grievance remedy, you do not need to say explicit what occurred. You're simply asking for a remedy that said that you want this to be made whole, meaning that if in fact the person did not get paid, that you would like them to be paid by effective date. You may also want to add the dates in there. However, the gist of your argument presentation will be your oral presentation in the meeting when you go before management. This is important. You don't want to give away your case and your conversation before you get to the meeting. You just simply, for the grievance form, you fill out all the particulars, all the questions that are asked precisely, and the remedy, you're citing what your remedy is, the member to be made whole with all benefits, and then you do your presentation once you get to the meeting. The other thing we want to look at is how do we prepare the grievance, or the grievance in the meeting. Remember, the grievant may not have ever filed a grievance before, right? And even if a member has filed a grievance before, you still want to meet with the member prior to the hearing to make sure you understand and explain to them. Make sure that they understand and you explain to them what that environment would look like. Is it going to be in a conference room? If it is a conference room, how is it set up? Management sits on one side, the union sits on the other side. You are the lead presenter if you are the union head, store representative. You are typically presenting on behalf of the member. You want to let them know that management will function the same way. There is one head, meaning that either the HR director will present or whomever they have designated to do the presentation. In that meeting with your member, you want to let them know to relax, not to be nervous. You're going to do your best to represent them. If they need to talk to you about anything, they can write a note and let you know that you would like a break, that they want to talk to you. They might have just remembered something that's really important to the case. At that point in time, as the steward or even as the member, if you are representing yourself, which I don't recommend if you are part of a union shop, you want to ask for an excuse for maybe 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, so that you can meet with your member or even discuss with yourself and others what it is that's going on in private. You may ask for yourself to leave, you and your member to leave the room, or you may ask management if it's okay that they leave the room for 5 to 10 minutes, and you will let them know when you're finished so that they can come back in and you can continue the conversation. All of these tactics and strategies, they are ways to help, number one, calm your member if in fact they are nervous. It's also a way for you to get your thought process together if you might have overlooked something, or if the member wanted to ask you something, or if you wanted to ask the member something. All right, so again, these are tactics and strategies that you can use in order to help you proceed in a most professional way. You also, again, you're describing the setting. You want to review with the grievant what he or she will say or will not say during the meeting. Now, oftentimes, if as a steward you are presenting a case and you don't have control of your member, or quote unquote control of your member, it just simply means that you're having a discussion with them, telling them, listen, I'm going to do the talking. If I need to ask you a question, I will write you a note. If I ask you a question, I need you to answer that question and not give me any other answers. The same thing with if management asks you a question, stick to the question. You may pause and ask for clarification if in fact you want a minute, and just go ahead and answer the question. If you need to look at me for any type of support, you may do that. But do not feel as though you're obligated to continue on. Just be focused. In that way, you can get through the meeting very well. Some Stewart's role in the hearing with the grievance is extremely important, right? So if you're going to be representing again, make sure that your member understands that. Make sure that your member, particularly those who may be a little on 10 instead of staying on 5, simply meaning they're, extremely elevated, they're extremely emotional, you let them know very clearly that this is business. We're going to go in there and do what we can do our best. You're going to represent with the facts. You don't need any outbursts. And again, if they're feeling uncomfortable and they need a break, they need to let you know so that you can oblige them with a break. It's better you do that instead of having a situation where they may end up proving management right if in fact they're talking about behavior and or disrespect or anything like that. You always want to be presenting yourself as a professional. The other thing we want to look at is to anticipate management's arguments, right? Questions, point of view. Know how you and your grievant will respond to each of these. So this is going back to what I just said. In a sense, you as a short should know and pretty much anticipate what some of these questions are, because management already knows what is it you're coming to meet with them about, because you informed them. So therefore, when they ask a question, you should anticipate what the answer is. There should be no question that will be presented to you that you may not have anticipated, right? If that happens, then you really were not prepared, and you may need to ask for a part 2 of that hearing, that meeting, so that you can get yourself together and try to do your best job. So those are some of the things that I wanted to go over in terms of preparing your grievance package to present a hearing case on behalf of a member, on behalf of a group, and that member, if it's a member trying to represent yourself, obviously you can do the same as well. But as always, I say, if you are part of a union, that is what the professionals are for. The representatives are highly skilled and highly trained how to navigate the system. If you are a steward, you're in constant training and should be, to make sure that you understand new techniques, new skill sets that you can use in order to represent and do your best in preparing for the grievance. So until next time, I will see you on Madonna's Lounge, Everything Grievance series, and you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.